Naxalism. The problem associated with Naxalism. As we just studied, Naxalism gets its name from Naxalbari village. From West Bengal. Yes. A very popular leader who initiated Naxalism in India was a person known as Charu Majumdar. It all begins from West Bengal. And interestingly, West Bengal has been a bastion of communist politics for a good amount of this century. West Bengal as a state has been a bastion of communist politics. If you have heard of Jyoti Basu as the Chief Minister of West Bengal, one of the longest serving Chief Ministers of India, Jyoti Basu, comes from Communist Party of India. So the communists have had a very strong hold on West Bengal politics for a good period. Only recently they have lost power. With the coming up of Trinamool Congress, they have lost power, the Communist Party. They derive their power mainly from two states, largely. One was West Bengal, second is, and it still continues to be, is Kerala. Otherwise, communists have lost regularly. They have lost their support base has eroded regularly. Yes. And this Naxalism was more influenced by communism. Whose communism? The communism of China. Was influenced by the communism of China. And the communism of China, they put all their onus, or they give credit to one man in China, which is a person known as Mao Zedong. Have you heard of Mao Zedong? The revolutionary in China who was instrumental in establishing communist government in China. Today everything in China is communism only. Their political party is also called as Communist Party of China, CPC. Yes. See, Mao Zedong was a very instrumental individual who went ahead and established a communist political party, a communist government in China. We are speaking about this person, Mao Zedong. Yes. He is revered almost as the father of China today. Like we have Gandhi in India, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Mao Zedong is revered almost as a father of the nation. You go to Beijing, you'll find big portraits of Mao Zedong. They celebrate his birth anniversary like a national festival. This Mao Zedong, the way he used violence as a political tool to achieve his own ends. There is no end. But people in India also got influenced by the communism in China, and Mao, and the leader of this communist movement in China was Mao. Because it was influenced, it became also known as this whole movement also became known as Maoism. And the people who indulged into this movement were called as heard no? In Hindi they say Maoist, Naxalism or Maoism. This is the philosophy. This is how the birth. So what he did to China, the group of people who are fighting the government today want to do the same thing in India also. How Mao overturned China into a communist China, the people in India want to follow the same exact suit. So if you want to understand what can be the outcomes of Naxalism in India, study Mao's China today. What was promised to the people and what has been given to the people? The promise of a great future, great livelihood, equality amongst people, Has it been fulfilled in China today? Has it been fulfilled? If you look at that, you will understand probably what can be the outcome of Naxalism in India if it continues to persist like that. Which army is this? Which country's army is this? Which country's army is this? American army, huh? Huh? If you look at the symbols here on the walls, there's an axe, there's a sickle. This is a symbol of Communist Party. The traditional symbol of the Communist Party, an axe and a sickle. They represent the farmer, the laborers, the have-nots, basically, the downtrodden in the society. So, this are the armed insurgents. These individuals that you say are the armed insurgents who we refer to as Maoists or Naxals in India. See, they are carrying guns. If they see any security forces nearby, what do you think they would do? Kill them. They are trained to kill. They are trained to kill. They observe any security force, any police forces nearby, they will kill them. Because they are fighting a fight against the government itself. Red is their color. And it's a very popular slogan, Lal Salam. Red salute, Lal Salam. Very popular. They call themselves, each other as comrades. That means that showcases that everyone has equal contribution to the fight. Comrade. Everyone is equal. They are not colleagues. They are all comrades. This is how communism builds itself. They are being trained here. They do not have the resources that a conventional army has. If you look at them, you will understand. They do not have the resources of a conventional army. But yet they have taken up arms. Against whom? Against their own government. They say, we want this government to come down. We will make sure that we bring this government down. With power. Through the barrel of the gun. This worked very well in China, but they have been trying to do this, trying, but it's not working very well in India. Once. Internationally, why do you think China is so much interested in what is happening in India? There are a lot of people who want India to come down. India has no dearth of people who would love to see India being destroyed. There are people with deep pockets internationally who would love to fund such movements. They would say, I will give you any kind of money that you ask for, but make sure that you make sure India is destroyed. Lots and lots of funding is not a huge problem. China is always ready, ever willing. If we can assure China that we will make sure the government collapses, it will fund you to the extent that you cannot imagine. Communism, China would love to have India becoming a communist country. If India becomes a communist country, China will have a very huge influence on India. India will become a secondary colony of China for that matter. Yes. China is the boss here, the communist boss across the world today. If India becomes a communist country, if they end up succeeding, which I don't think will ever happen, which if they end up succeeding by chance, then India will have to work under the influence of China only. China has much more experience in handling communism. India will have to learn from that. But again, I don't think this is possible also. It's not going to be that easy for anybody. Naxalism has been identified as India's most serious internal security challenge. Very, 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 very true. Today, internally, if you are facing Any issue that challenges the notion of India being a stable country, it is Naxalism. If we can tackle this issue and eradicate it, I'm not tackling in the sense completely eradicate it from our soil, you will see that India can move quicker in the formats of development. Because today the government, the amount of money that the government spends in tackling Naxalism, if that money is freed from this, that can be used for some developmental work, and that money will bring exponential development in central India. Understand this? So we are spending a lot of energy, time, resources, and money in tackling this. At least they have succeeded in troubling the government for sure. If they have not succeeded in uprooting the government, they have at least succeeded in troubling the government. That's for sure. What is Naxalism or left-wing extremism? LW. Left-wing communism. No? Communism is referred to as a left-wing ideology. Hence, sometimes it is referred to as a left-wing extremism. These fellows can go to any extreme to achieve their goals. The term Naxal derives its name from the village Naxalbari of the district Darjeeling in West Bengal, where the movement originated in 1967 under the leadership of, I just gave you the name, Charu Majumdar and Kanu Sanyal. Earlier we had a Communist Party of India. Communist Party of India is not new to India. But what Charu Majumdar, the leader of this movement, did is, he took this movement and made it converted into a more radical format. He converted that into a more radical format. So there was a time when the communists were fighting other communists. The more moderate communists were fighting more radical communists. India even saw that period. The moderate communists fighting radical communists. But nonetheless, he was a very influential individual in giving a push to this communist movement in India. And that is how it ended up moving further also. It refers to the use of violence. Central figure in communism or this Naxal movement is their reliance upon violence. Without violence, this whole process becomes undone, zero. Without violence. You remove violence from Naxalism, they are deadbeats. They are sitting ducks. Since they have not been able to convince the people of the benefits of becoming a communist country, yes, you can convince the people also, right? You can go to the people, talk to them. There is a Communist Party of India. We know that they are very pro-communist. They are pro-socialist and communist organizations. We know that. They can go and convince. They have the ability to go and convince people. Look, probably communism. India is a democracy. We do not want absolute communism to come to India. But at least you have the political rights, you have the constitutional rights to go and use that. Talk to people. But what Naxalism has done, they have failed in convincing people of any benefits of going communism. Because that failed, now they are putting guns in their mouths. You say, would you accept or not? If guns are put in your mouth, would you accept or not? You would say yes, of course. Life or communism? Life, yeah. If I survive, then only everything matters, no? My survival is more important. So the use of violence to destabilize the state through various communist guerrilla groups. Guerrilla groups. Guerrilla groups are informally trained groups who believe in engaging in unconventional warfare. Unconventional. Like hide and bite. Hide and bite or ambush warfare. They believe in all these. Because their numbers are not that great, they cannot challenge the government directly and cannot fight the government in open arena. Assume, for example, there are 50,000 Naxals, assume. Can they fight an open battle with the army or the security forces of India? Openly. All the 50,000 coming together. Open place. They'll be decimated in one day. They'll be decimated in one day. They know that. They do not have the numbers. They do not have the weapons. They do not have the modern strategic commands. They do not have the tactics. So what they have? They are basically playing by their strength. As they say, play by your strength. Their strength is hide and bite, attack, ambush. Don't leave a trail behind. So in this particular way, even a few Naxal forces, 100 of them, can create huge damage also. And they keep using this, they keep doing this again and again and again. That is why it is difficult. And again, they have the advantage of terrain also. The biggest advantage in warfare is the advantage of terrain. Weapons generally don't win you wars. It is the people and the terrain that wins you war. You might have the biggest force, having the best of weapons. But if you are entering someone else's terrain and challenging them in their own terrain, you will always have disadvantages. This is what happened to America when it entered Vietnam. The Vietnam War of America. America had the best of weapons. What was Vietnam? Communist Vietnam. What was it? But the amount of terrible trouble that so America faced in Vietnam War, because the Vietnamese individual used guerrilla, the same guerrilla techniques. They killed them. I would say lakhs of US soldiers being ambushed. Terrain to their advantage, home ground advantage. The Naxals tribals who live in these hills, they know their home turf very, very well. And the security forces have to come from outside. Before they even have an understanding of the terrain, they are already ambushed. Big challenge. Second comes the local support. Look, poor fellows, poor people, local people who live there. If they support the security forces, the Naxals trouble them. If they support the Naxals, the security forces trouble them. What to do now? For the locals, it is a huge issue. They do not want war, they want peace. They just want to live their life peacefully. But they are put in a place, they are compelled in such a situation where they would either have to support the Naxals or support the security forces. They are punished either ways. They are punished either ways. Very, very horrible situation. Okay? Let us understand what is the philosophical background of the Naxalism. Why did this movement, even in the first place, come up? Naxalism in India, like any other leftist movement across the world, across the globe, there are too many leftist movements which have taken place across the globe. Some of them have succeeded in bringing or toppling the governments and establishing their own governments. Be it Putin's October Revolution, Lenin's, Vladimir Lenin, 1917 October Revolution, where he toppled the Tsars and established a communist regime. Or he refers to it as a socialist regime. Mao's socialist regime. Okay. Or have you heard of Cuba? Cuba, where not central per se, very much close to America itself. Cuba is hardly 100 kilometers away from the coastline of Florida. Hardly 100 kilometers. So a country which is so close, on the backyards, if America opens its back door, voila, there is Cuba. Opens its back door, there is Cuba. America is the biggest capitalist, is the most staunchest supporter of capitalism in the entire world. But just at its back door, there sits a country where a communist and a socialist revolution happened, and people, especially people called as Castro brothers, Fidel Castro and Raul Castro, Not Rahul, Raul, R-A-U-L, Raul, not Rahul, okay? Fidel Castro and Raul Castro. Fidel Castro died recently, and Raul Castro is the current president of Cuba. These people successfully defeated the government, capitalist government, and brought about a communist regime in Cuba. There is North Korea, for example. Wherever you find communist regimes today, they are not really performing well, except for China, for that matter. That is not communist, no? I'm speaking exclusively of communism. Exclusively of communism. That is not communist, no? Yeah. Movements that have happened around the globe, ideologies basis. For example, the Russian Revolution, where Vladimir Lenin, successfully fought against the czars. The czars were the kings of Russia, monarchs of Russia. So people were fed up with the atrocities of the kings. People were fed up with the inability of the kings to improve their lives. Lenin gave them a leadership. They said, "Chalo, chalo." That is when they gain that symbol, the sickle and the axe. It basically represents the farmer and the laborer, the have-nots in the society, the downtrodden. Okay. Here, Lenin successfully fought against the Tsar through a combination of the peasant movement and an armed struggle. The prime intent was to bestow power in the hands of the exploited and marginalized and enforced societal control over governance and nation building. Lenin also back then promised people, look, farmers, come here. Look, laborers, come here. Your life is miserable. Support me. I'll make your life more meaningful. I'll bring more wealth to your lives. I'll bring more happiness into your lives. People wanted that. People said, yes, we'll support you. So a revolution happened. He led it. A revolution. Armed revolution happened. Tsars were killed. And now the power went in the hands of Lenin. Now he established USSR. He said Soviet Russia. It is no longer the Tsar's Russia. Tsar's Russia, it is Soviet Russia, where equality will be given to people, where wealth shall be distributed equally amongst people, where the government will control the resources of the state. All this. But just 20 years down the line, when Lenin died, someone else comes. When he also dies, someone else comes. Just 20 years down the line after Lenin's death, came a person called as, probably you might have heard of this name, Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin. Stalin was an absolute autocratic, brutal ruler. He killed millions of his own people. Millions. He was a power maniac, power hungry maniac. Is it to secure my power, I can go to any extent. So the same communism or the same government which was meant to bring welfare to the people brought misery to the people's life. So these are the dangers of going and following any philosophy without understanding the advantages as well as disadvantages that it has. You blindly ape to one philosophy, you are going to suffer the problems in the future. That is what happened with this also, and that is what will happen with Naxalism also in the future. That is what we have to understand. It will happen in the future as well. After the success of Lenin-led revolution in Russia, the intellectual class in many countries started thinking of ushering in a change in the respective nations. Lenin was the leader here. Lenin was the trend setter here. He set the trend. He said, see, if I can do it, others can also do it. You need just one person. You need just one person to show you how it is done. Others will follow suit very soon. Until Mount Everest was climbed for the first time, everybody thought it is unreachable. The moment, who was the first climber? Who was the first? No GS, no knowledge. Who was the first British man? European. Edmund Hillary. And along with the Sherpa also went. His name was Tenzing Norgay. Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. These two people went and climbed the Mount Everest for the first time. Everybody else. Today you see there is a traffic jam on Mount Everest. People are standing in queues. Similarly, one man had to show the entire world that communism was possible. One man showed it, others said, yes, we will also do it. We will look at Lenin, we will also do it. And the prominent who were watching Lenin were Fidel Castro and Mao Zedong. This is what I told you. Castro in Cuba, revolutionary. Mao Zedong in China, he is also revolutionary. They said, we can also do it. If they can do it, we can also do it. In China, Mao Zedong used his philosophy successfully, which led to the origin of Maoism, his own form of communism, which became popular as Maoism, taking by his name. Maoism is a doctrine that teaches to capture state power. Capture state power through a combination of armed insurgency, mass mobilization, and strategic alliances. Capture the power through all this. Mao called this process as protracted people's war because this will drain your opponent's energy, resources, slowly. You stretch it and it becomes a protracted people's war. People are at the center of this whole war. And hence it becomes protracted people's war. A strategy that was used by Mao, which succeeded, which surprisingly helped him quite well in China. He destabilized very much an elected government of China led by a person called as Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek was the leader of a political party which was having power in China. He usurped the power from him and took that power forcefully from that. The political power, he says, the political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. Because basically, force is the precursor and the complementary power to the political power. Without force, according to him, without force, you cannot achieve political power. We cannot say he was wrong. He achieved that. He showed how violence can bring you political success. He achieved and showed it to the world. Lenin's fight was different. Mao's fight was different. Castro's fight was different. Everybody's fight was very different from each other. But they all used some common techniques. They all kept using some common techniques. Okay. The Naxalites in India are far left radical communists. Far left radical communists who derive their political ideology from the teachings of Mao Zedong. Hence, these are also referred to as Maoist, Maoadi, because they believe in Mao's vision, they believe in Mao's techniques, and they want to do what Mao had done to China. Yes. So if Naxalism is successful in India, God forbid, if they succeed in India, India will become a communist country. And what would be the future of India? What would be the future of India if Naxalists secure power in India? Will India become like another China? Will India literally become another China? Because China is doing quite well, no, economically today. Second largest economic power in the world. So if you look at China, I think you should be very happy with Naxalism going on. You should be thinking, wow, we will become like China, we will become a powerhouse of the world. But otherwise also we are performing quite well in economically. Otherwise also we are performing quite well economically. Should we go the communist path? If you do, you have to compromise on certain things. Even if you go the communist path, You will end up compromising on certain things. And those things would be your rights, your freedom, your political franchise, your voice. You bargain here. You give all this to them, they will say, we will take care of you now. So that is a bargain that everyone has to think for themselves.